What do you think the most dangerous place in the world would look like? A volcano, a desert, or the bottom of the ocean? Across our planet, there are places that create a strange feeling just by existing. This thing shouldn't even be here. An island packed with venomous snakes, isolated in the middle of the sea. A massive fire pit that has been burning in the desert for decades. A mountain where the human body itself starts reacting to low oxygen and extremely thin air. But that still isn't the scariest part. Because once you look deeper into these places, the question is no longer, how dangerous are they? It becomes, how can places like these even exist on Earth? If there's one place where climbing a mountain slowly turns into a battle with every breath you take, Everest would probably be the first name that comes to mind. Above 8,000 meters is an area known as the death zone, where the human body begins breaking itself down even while basic life functions are still going on. About 30% air pressure. That's what you have to adapt to here. It means the amount of oxygen your body takes in is no longer enough for the brain and lungs to function normally. Stay there too long, and you could develop cerebral edema, lose consciousness, or go into respiratory failure while temperatures regularly drop below -30 degrees Celsius. And at that altitude, real rescue operations barely exist. Helicopters struggle to stay stable. Bringing one person down the mountain can sometimes put even more people in danger. More than 300 people have died on Everest, and many bodies are still resting on its slopes, like silent markers pointing toward the summit. Even knowing all of that, the stream of people heading toward the top of Everest has never stopped. What if there were a mountain right next to where you live that could swallow an entire city in just a few hours? For nearly 2 million people living around the city of Goma, that isn't a hypothetical situation. It's everyday reality. Mount Nyiragongo has the largest lava lake on Earth, with temperatures rising above 1,000 degrees Celsius. What's even more frightening is that the rare type of lava inside it can move at speeds close to 100 kilometers per hour, fast enough that escaping can sometimes become nearly impossible. In 2002, Nyiragongo erupted violently. Streams of lava pushed directly into the city of Goma, destroying around 15% of the urban area and leaving more than 100,000 people without homes. Then, in 2021, glowing red rivers of fire appeared once again in the night, turning the sky over Congo into something that looked like the end of the world. But the scariest part is that none of it is over. Right at the foot of that mountain, millions of people still continue living beside a geological time bomb that could wake up at any moment. The first time you see the blue flames of Kawa Ijen in the middle of the night, you'll probably think it's a place that looks almost unreal. Blue fire keeps glowing inside the volcano's crater. It forms when sulfur gases rise from underground and ignite at temperatures above 600 degrees Celsius. Because of that, the entire mountain feels more like something out of a science fiction movie than real life. But behind that almost hypnotic beauty is one of the most dangerous environments on Earth. Inside the crater sits the world's largest natural acidic lake, holding around 36 million cubic meters of sulfuric acid with a pH that can drop below 0.5, powerful enough to corrode even metal. The air around it is always thick with sulfur dioxide, a toxic gas that can burn your lungs and cause suffocation within minutes if the wind suddenly shifts direction. Even so, hundreds of workers still climb down into the volcano every day to mine sulfur by hand, carrying rocks weighing up to 90 kilograms on their shoulders with almost no protective equipment. In this place, danger doesn't come from the ground beneath your feet. It exists in the one thing humans need most to survive: the air. If you were standing at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, there would be nearly 11 kilometers of ocean above you, deeper than Mount Everest is tall above sea level. This is the deepest place ever known on Earth, where water pressure can exceed more than 1,000 times the atmospheric pressure at ground level, powerful enough to crush most regular submarines in an instant. Sunlight never reaches this place. Temperatures drop to only around 1 to 4 degrees Celsius. So far, humans have explored only a tiny fraction of this deep trench. Yet beneath that overwhelming pressure, strange creatures still survive in ways that almost seem impossible, from glowing fish to species that depend on chemicals deep beneath the ocean floor. Sending humans down into Mariana is so difficult and dangerous that fewer people have reached the bottom of this place than have walked on the moon. And maybe that's exactly what makes the Mariana Trench one of the few places on Earth where the more we explore, the more we realize how little we actually know about the ocean. There are places people avoid because they know exactly what's waiting for them. Sundarbans is different. You aren't afraid because you see danger. You're afraid because you don't know where it is. This mangrove forest stretches across nearly 10,000 square kilometers between India and Bangladesh and is made up of thousands of small rivers, swamps, and winding waterways that almost all look the same. Take a wrong turn, and finding your way back can become extremely difficult. But that's only the beginning. Sundarbans is home to Bengal tigers, known for swimming long distances, moving with almost no sound, and appearing surprisingly close to human settlements. Around them are saltwater crocodiles, venomous snakes, and powerful storms coming from the Bay of Bengal. Even so, thousands of people still go deep into the forest because Sundarbans remains an important source of livelihood for many families in the region. Just stepping outside for a few minutes in Oymyakon during winter can make your eyelashes start freezing. This small village deep in Siberia is considered the coldest permanently inhabited place on Earth. With temperatures once recorded as low as -71.2 degrees Celsius. On the coldest days, cars are left running continuously because engines can freeze completely after only a few hours. Phones, camera batteries, and even eyeglasses often stop working almost immediately after being exposed to the outdoor air for too long. The ground in Oymyakon stays permanently frozen for nearly the entire year. Winter can last up to 9 months, and during the coldest period, daylight only lasts a few hours. But life still goes on here. Children still go to school in temperatures close to -50 degrees Celsius, and hundreds of people continue living in a place where simply breathing the air can feel painfully cold. Hidden deep inside the rainforest of Boiling Lake is a body of water that looks like it's being boiled straight from beneath the earth. The surface constantly rolls and churns. Thick steam rises into the air, and the sound resembles a giant pressure cooker that has never been turned off. At around 60 meters across, this is the second largest boiling lake in the world. The real issue is that nobody knows exactly how hot the water gets deep beneath the lake's surface. Scientists believe the water is heated directly by magma and volcanic gases below the ground. Temperatures around the edge can already climb above 80 degrees Celsius, while the center is hot enough to keep the water continuously boiling. Standing too close can make breathing difficult because of the steam and sulfur gases. At Boiling Lake, you never actually see flames, but the ground beneath has never truly cooled down. The first thing you usually hear at Tiger Leaping Gorge isn't the wind or footsteps, it's the sound of water echoing from far below through the canyon. Beneath it flows the Jinsha River, the upper section of the Yangtze River, rushing through a narrow gap between mountains that rise more than 5,000 meters high. That massive difference in elevation created one of the deepest canyons in the world. The hiking trail along the cliffs above the river is known for steep terrain that constantly changes. Some sections become narrow enough that you have to walk close to the rock wall while powerful muddy water churns far below. During the rainy season, melting snow and heavy rainfall make the river even more violent, while increasing the risk of rockfalls and landslides in certain areas. And maybe it's because everything here feels so massive, the cliffs, the river, and the depth of the canyon itself, that the journey through Tiger Leaping Gorge becomes memorable in a very different way. Bright yellow ground covered in sulfur, acid pools boiling in the middle of the desert, daytime temperatures regularly rising above 45 degrees Celsius. Those are the conditions inside the Danakil Depression, one of the harshest environments ever recorded on Earth. Danakil sits below sea level and marks the point where three major tectonic plates are slowly pulling apart beneath the ground. The air around it carries toxic gases released by geothermal activity, while lakes filled with acid and minerals can cause serious burns if touched. Some areas get so hot that the ground itself can warp electronic devices after only a short period of contact. But even this place has never escaped human footsteps. You can still find salt miners crossing the desert with camel caravans, continuing work that has existed for centuries. From above, the Great Blue Hole looks like a giant dark blue circle sitting in the middle of the Caribbean Sea. With a diameter of around 318 meters and a depth of more than 120 meters, this underwater sinkhole is large enough to be clearly seen from the air. The water at the surface is usually calm and almost picture-perfect, but the deeper you go, the stranger things begin to look. Light disappears quickly as the depth increases, while oxygen levels in the water drop sharply. In deeper layers, some areas are almost completely lifeless and contain water rich in hydrogen sulfide, a toxic gas that can become dangerous if released in high concentrations. The cave systems and limestone formations below also make navigation extremely difficult for divers. Even so, the Great Blue Hole remains one of the most famous diving spots in the world. The combination of its perfect appearance and the mysterious world beneath it has turned this place into somewhere many people want to experience at least once for themselves. The sound of metal hitting chains, shoes scraping across old wooden planks, an empty space right beneath your feet. That's the first feeling you get when stepping onto the most famous route on Mount Hua. There are no real guardrails, no actual path in the usual sense. Just narrow wooden boards attached directly to a nearly vertical cliff more than 2,000 meters above the ground. This is the Plank Walk, once considered one of the most dangerous pathways in the world. Some sections are less than 30 centimeters wide, forcing people to move one careful step at a time while relying mostly on safety harnesses and a chain fixed to the mountainside. Whenever someone comes from the opposite direction, both people have to press themselves against the rock wall while standing above drops hundreds of meters deep. But that same feeling of hanging between the clouds and the abyss is exactly what turned Mount Hua into one of China's most famous experiences. Every year, thousands of people still come here, not just for the view, but to walk a path that literally makes your heart beat faster. Walking into Naica feels like stepping into a place your eyes keep telling you shouldn't exist. Beneath Mexico's Chihuahua Desert lies a cave where giant crystals grow in every direction. Some of them stretch over 11 meters long, weigh as much as 55 tons, and are considered among the largest natural crystals ever discovered on Earth. Under artificial light, the entire space glows as if it were built from enormous blocks of crystal. But that beauty exists inside an environment that is almost impossible to endure. Temperatures inside the cave can rise above 50 degrees Celsius, while humidity levels come close to 100%, leaving the human body with almost no ability to cool itself. "10 to 15 minutes. That's usually how long a person can stay without specialized equipment before facing the risk of heat shock or passing out." For hundreds of thousands of years, those extreme conditions have protected Naica from the outside world, almost as if this place was meant to exist alone beneath the earth. In many places, the surface of the Congo River looks fairly calm, but underneath it lies one of the most unpredictable rivers in the world. Stretching more than 4,700 kilometers, it is the deepest river ever recorded on Earth, with some areas believed to reach depths greater than 220 meters. That extreme depth, combined with a complex riverbed, creates underwater currents powerful enough that many scientists believe there are still sections beneath the river that have not been fully studied. The Congo also runs through vast rainforests and regions that remain almost completely isolated from the outside world. For millions of people across Central Africa, it serves as a major transportation route, a water source, and a critical path for moving goods. In many places, the Congo is practically the only connection between communities deep in the forest and the outside world, making it both a lifeline and a force of nature that can never be fully controlled. At first glance, Mount Washington does not look very different from many other mountains in the United States. The summit rises only about 1,917 meters high. But the weather is what made this place famous around the world. Mount Washington once recorded wind speeds reaching 372 kilometers per hour. One of the strongest wind measurements ever recorded on Earth's surface outside of tornadoes. Temperatures here can drop dramatically within just a few hours, while thick fog, ice, snow, and powerful winds can make visibility almost disappear entirely. Even during summer, conditions on the mountain can change suddenly in ways that are difficult to predict. Those extreme weather conditions have turned Mount Washington into one of the harshest weather environments in the world. At the same time, it attracts thousands of hikers and weather researchers every year because very few places let you experience the power of weather this intensely at an elevation below 2,000 meters. Not every dangerous mountain is the tallest one. Sometimes a sheer cliff, unpredictable weather, and one small mistake are enough to turn climbing into something that feels almost impossible. Cerro Torre has long been one of the best examples of that. Located in the Patagonia region of Argentina, this peak rises like a giant granite spike with walls that are nearly vertical. Cerro Torre stands only around 3,128 meters tall, but height has never been the most intimidating part. Cold winds from the Patagonian ice field can appear suddenly at extremely high speeds, bringing thick clouds, snow and ice that coat the smooth rock faces. Massive ice mushrooms also form near the summit, layers of hardened ice built up over time that make climbing even more difficult. For many years, Cerro Torre was considered one of the greatest challenges in modern mountaineering. Zipolite was once known by the nickname the Beach of the Dead. But standing on the sand, it's difficult to understand why it earned that name. Large waves keep rolling toward the shore. The beach stretches along the Pacific Ocean. The surroundings look more like a vacation destination than a dangerous place. But what happens beneath the water is what made Zipolite famous. This beach often experiences powerful rip currents that can pull swimmers far from shore within a short amount of time if they do not react properly. For many years, the area recorded a significant number of drowning incidents before local rescue teams were established and began maintaining a more regular presence. Even so, Zipolite still attracts large numbers of tourists and surfers because of its untouched scenery and the large waves that define Oaxaca's coastline. And maybe, like many other places around the world, the calmer and more beautiful something looks, the easier it becomes to forget about the danger hiding underneath it. When you step into the poison garden, one of the first things you'll notice are warning signs telling visitors not to touch, smell, or get too close to the plants inside. Almost everything behind the gates can become dangerous if handled the wrong way. This garden is located inside Alnwick Garden and was specially designed to grow poisonous plants under strict control. Inside are plants containing neurotoxins that can cause suffocation, hallucinations, or were once used as poisons throughout history. Some are dangerous enough that improper contact alone can trigger strong physical reactions. A few are even kept inside metal cages to prevent visitors from accidentally touching them. Poison Garden isn't very large, but it's enough to show that nature can sometimes be dangerous in ways that are almost impossible to recognize with the naked eye. Beneath the crowded streets of Paris lies a maze almost completely separated from the world above. To reach it, you have to walk down more than 130 steps, leading roughly 18 meters underground. No natural light, just long tunnels lined with human bones. The catacombs of Paris began taking shape in the late 18th century after the city faced a serious cemetery crisis caused by rapid population growth, disease outbreaks, and war that overwhelmed burial grounds. Paris authorities later decided to use abandoned underground quarries to relocate remains from across the city. The process took around 12 years to complete, and today the site is believed to contain the remains of roughly 6 to 7 million Parisians. Only a small section of the catacombs is open to visitors, while most of the underground maze still remains off-limits to the public. From the narrow tunnels beneath the catacombs of Paris, there is another place in the world that makes people wonder how human life was even built there. But this time, it isn't underground. It's squeezed between enormous mountain walls. Yanjin sits inside a valley so narrow that some parts are only around 30 meters wide. On one side is the Nangxi River. On the other side are steep mountain walls, forcing the entire town to stretch out like a thin strip along the water. Space is so limited that many buildings had to be constructed on pillars along the riverbank just to use every small piece of available land. Steep terrain, heavy rainfall, and landslide risks also make construction difficult here. Instead of expanding outward like most cities, Yanjin has spent years growing along the river between two massive cliffs. There are places where one look is enough to make you wonder why people ever decided to build their lives there. Castellfollit de la Roca is one of them. This small village sits entirely on a basalt cliff, more than 1 kilometer long and around 50 meters high in Catalonia, Spain. The cliff formed from volcanic lava that cooled thousands of years ago, creating a narrow strip of land rising almost vertically above 2 rivers below. Many homes here were built so close to the edge that from a distance they look like they're hanging in the air. Narrow streets and extremely limited space leave almost no room for expansion. Its unusual location has made Castellfollit de la Roca known as one of Europe's most difficult places to live, where people have spent hundreds of years on a strip of rock that barely looks safe enough for an entire village. Looking at giant umbrella-shaped trees growing across dry landscapes, many people seeing Socotra for the first time think the images must be from a science fiction movie. The island separated from the mainland around 6 to 7 million years ago, long enough for its ecosystem to evolve almost entirely on its own path. More than 30% of its plant species cannot be found anywhere else on Earth. The most recognizable is the dragonblood tree, with its wide umbrella-shaped crown and deep red sap that looks like blood. Alongside it are many strange-looking plants, adapted to hot, dry conditions and strong year-round winds. The harsh environment and isolated location make life here difficult. Especially during storm season, when some areas can become almost completely cut off from the outside world. Yet even in a place that looks more like another planet, more than 60,000 people still live here, mostly along the island's coastlines. More than 3,800 meters above sea level in the Himalayas, Spiti Valley is an isolated settlement region in India. The valley is surrounded by barren mountains, deep cliffs, and narrow mountain roads that regularly deal with snow and falling rocks. Winter temperatures can drop below -20 degrees Celsius. At certain times of the year, Spiti becomes almost completely cut off from the outside world as roads disappear beneath heavy snow. What's remarkable is that despite those harsh conditions, over 12,000 people still live across small villages scattered throughout the valley. Some of these communities have existed for hundreds of years at elevations where very few places on Earth can support long-term life. The thin air at high altitude also makes many visitors experience headaches, shortness of breath, or altitude sickness if they arrive too quickly. And maybe only when standing among those small villages in the Himalayas can you truly understand how difficult life in Spiti really is. In many parts of the world, a snowstorm is something people simply wait to pass. But at McMurdo Station, it's almost just another part of everyday life. Located on Ross Island, this research station is the largest human settlement in Antarctica. Where temperatures can drop below -50 degrees Celsius. During the summer, McMurdo can have more than 1,000 people living and working there, including scientists, engineers, and support staff. But once winter arrives, that number drops sharply. Freezing winds, snowstorms, long periods of extreme cold. Almost everything here, from food and fuel to medical supplies, has to be brought in from outside. In an environment where simply maintaining electricity, water, and livable temperatures is already difficult, the long-term existence of an entire community in Antarctica still feels hard to believe. In many parts of the world, people usually avoid building communities along harsh coastlines. But in Lofoten, small villages still cling to the edge of icy Arctic waters, sitting beneath towering cliffs that almost look like they are falling into the ocean. This island chain in northern Norway lies inside the Arctic Circle. During winter, temperatures regularly drop well below freezing. Cold winds from the Norwegian Sea constantly sweep through the fjords, while snowstorms and powerful waves can completely change conditions on the water within a short time. But despite all of that, people have continued living here for thousands of years through fishing. In Lofoten, the sea has never promised that tomorrow will be easier than today. Vjosa is not like most rivers in Europe. It hasn't been blocked, it hasn't been redirected, and it has never learned how to flow on human terms. Considered one of the last wild river systems left in Europe, Vjosa stretches more than 270 kilometers through rocky canyons, flooded plains, and constantly shifting currents. There are no major dams stopping the flow, no fixed routes cutting through it. Every year, small rafts still push into the rapids to pass through narrow rock channels along the Vjosa River. Paddle. Hold your direction. React fast. Just a few meters ahead, the current can split in two, slam against rock walls, and change direction almost instantly. At Vjosa, humans do not really control the river. Sometimes they're just trying to guess what nature will do next. Signs throughout Death Valley often warn visitors not to walk too far from their vehicles. The reason is simple. Temperatures here have reached nearly 57 degrees Celsius, sitting around 86 meters below sea level. This valley is surrounded by mountain ranges that trap heat inside. The ground burns under your feet, the air shimmers from the heat. The entire landscape feels like a giant oven sitting beneath the sun. But the danger isn't only the temperature itself. Your body starts losing water much faster than you actually realize. Sweating, dry mouth, dizziness. After only a few hours under extreme heat, exhaustion or heat stroke can happen surprisingly fast. In Death Valley, the sun doesn't need to touch you to become dangerous. It only needs time. As you get closer to Ilha da Queimada Grande, one thing quickly becomes obvious. Humans were never really welcomed here. No hotels, no residents, just forests, cliffs, and one of the highest concentrations of venomous snakes ever recorded in the world. Located around 35 kilometers off the coast of Brazil, this place is better known as Snake Island. Thousands of years of isolation turned the island into a home for thousands of snakes, including the extremely rare golden lancehead viper. Its venom is powerful enough to cause severe tissue damage within a short amount of time. No running, no chasing. They simply wait, on tree branches, beneath fallen leaves, right above your head. That's also why the Brazilian government heavily restricts access to the island, because on Snake Island, you aren't stepping into nature's territory. You're stepping into the territory of something that ruled this place long before humans ever arrived. If you stood in front of Darvaza at night, it would feel like the ground had been ripped open. Right beneath your feet sits a massive crater, burning endlessly in the middle of the Karakum Desert. Fire burning, never stopping, for decades. The crater is around 70 meters wide and formed after a natural gas drilling accident in 1971. To prevent methane from spreading further, scientists decided to set it on fire, believing the flames would burn out after a few days. That never happened. More than half a century later, the fire is still feeding on gas, rising from beneath the ground. Move closer, and you'll feel the heat hitting your face directly. The ground seems to breathe out waves of scorching air. Just a few steps away, a giant pit of fire continues burning through the earth every single day. More than 50 years have passed. The flames are still there. Lake Natron looks more like something the Earth created by accident than an ordinary lake. Long stretches of red, orange, and pink spread across the dry landscapes of Tanzania. Beautiful in a strange way, and strange enough to feel unsettling. But the surface of this lake is far from peaceful. Water temperatures can rise above 60 degrees Celsius, while alkalinity levels sometimes reach a pH of 10 to 12, close to certain powerful cleaning chemicals. The water contains large amounts of sodium carbonate and dissolved minerals, creating an environment harsh enough that most living things struggle to survive for long. And somehow, life still appears here. Millions of lesser flamingos return every year to breed, using those harsh conditions as a natural shield against predators. At Lake Natron, even life itself has to survive by following a very different set of rules. Along the coast of Namibia lies a place where even the name sounds like a warning. Skeleton Coast, not because of the sand, but because of what once became trapped there. This coastline sits where the cold Bengala Current meets hot air from the Namib Desert, creating thick fog that can cover the coast for days at a time. Offshore, strong waves and unpredictable currents dominate the water, while behind it lies one of the driest desert regions on Earth. Ocean in front, desert behind. For centuries, ships that wandered into the fog were pushed toward the shore. Rusted shipwrecks, whale bones scattered across the sand. Skeleton Coast still holds the remains of things that passed through this place and never found a way out again. And that's still only a very small part of the most dangerous places on Earth. There are still places out there that seem harder to understand the more you learn about them. Places that feel like they push beyond the normal limits of where life should even exist. Places where simply surviving already sounds almost impossible. Yet somehow, people continue living among them. What about you? Which place do you think you could survive in the longest? And which one would be the place you would never want to set foot in? Leave your answer in the comments below. If you enjoy exploring the world's most dangerous, strange, and unbelievable places, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss future videos.